welcome to Sky Sweaty Record Review, episode 160, the only first listen new music review show hosted by a French professor immediately after leaving the YMCA. So today I'm going to be reviewing Bon Iver, or Bon Iver as I call him. His name basically means good winter in French, and he's not French, he's not Canadian. I think he's from Wisconsin, I'm not quite sure. But I've been thinking about him, especially been thinking about this album a lot. I, all lowercase. I don't really know what it means. A lot of this album is mysterious and not entirely clear to me what it means. But I want to talk a little bit about my context with him. You see, I've been teaching a class for like 8 years. And the class is called French Rock and Hip Hop. And the idea behind the class is it's actually kind of a poison pill. Like I teach them about the nature of history and civilization through music, through popular music. And it's all based on the concept that the spirit of the time, the zeitgeist, can be understood through popular music. And ever since I first taught this class back in 2011, I have used, and I'm going to get into this usage soon, Bon Iver as a counterexample, as a useless artist for understanding culture. I'm actually going to pull up some of my PowerPoint of the first day of class in this course, okay? So let's see how that works out here. Okay, so we're really here with Professor Payne. Let's see, how do I get that so you can see it? All right, yeah, so I start that there. You know, I say music reflects life, and then I say, well, you know, what does it mean to reflect? And so what I do is I bring in this concept of an alien, you know, and I had this alien say, you know, take me to your zeitgeist. So if you're trying to describe the 2010s, what one song are you going to use? So I use as an example Pitchfork, you know, like the very serious music website that takes music very seriously, and that they put forth in 2011, when I first put this out, like the best album, the best song of the year to be by Bon Iver, and the song Holocene. So I showed this video, and if you haven't seen it, it's a funny video. It's like a little kid in a sweater running around, and it's Bon Iver with his falsetto and his contemplative singing, and I sort of have my students like talk about what do they experience. You know, it's contemplative, artistic integrity, full of harmony, at one with nature, kind of looks like a J. Crew catalog. And so I say, like, is this America? Is this what you associate with America? And they all sort of say, well, no. I mean, that's kind of a joke. Like, that's not our culture now. And so I say, you know, do you want to know the true zeitgeist? This picture of me from 2011. I used to have long hair. I say, do you want to know? And they say yes. And I say, you will pay for your curiosity. And then I show them the song Friday by Rebecca Black. And I go into a whole thing about how it reflects society, about YouTube and the rise of snark culture and the appropriation of black art and democratization of production, all that stuff. The basic premise behind this whole idea is that we can dismiss Bon Iver as a kind of effete, intellectual music only for people in Brooklyn going to artisanal coffee shops. I was wrong. I am wrong. Maybe I should do that for Vampire Weekend. No, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a Vampire Weekend guy, but maybe they're great. Put in the comments if I'm wrong about Vampire Weekend. So I want to get into this later and really ask, like, is it actually the other way around? Can we actually see a lot of our current society in Bon Iver's music? I think we can. I think we can actually learn a lot about our cultural moment from studying this record. But before I get to that point, let's just do a general review, and then I'll come back at the end, and I'll use Bon Iver as a way to describe where we are culturally right now. So if you aren't familiar with Bon Iver, this album in some ways is typical of his other music. I ended up liking that Holocene song after listening to it every semester. I bought that album. I really like Bon Iver. He mostly has kind of quiet, contemplative lyrics that you can't really understand because they're usually sung with a falsetto, like that's like double tracked, and lots of really forward instrumentation. He messes around. He used to mess around a lot with vocoders, with auto-tune, like just the whole world is his music box, and he just takes things out. The term that kept on coming back to me when I was listening to this record was a mad symphony. That he's just like kind of a madman. He just has like all these different ideas, almost like images of like Brian Wilson recording, you know, Pet Sounds and just being like, I need a bicycle horn. That's my Brian Wilson impersonation. It's actually pretty good. I kind of get the sense that he's sort of like, I don't know how he talks. I need 5 harmonicas on this song. That's how I imagine Bon Iver talks. in his day-to-day life. And when you have an album like this, that's like super crazy, insane instrumentation, you'd think that that really runs the risk of being unlistenable. But much like a few other records that I've listened to this year, in particular, the Flying Lotus album and the Chance the Rapper album, it all ends up being fairly cohesive, despite the fact that it feels like it's totally out there and just getting as abstract and weird and uncomfortable as possible. There's something that ends up being a kind of through line. So I'm going to go track by track. I'm going to admit something. This is usually a first listen review show. I listened to it once and I was like, I just barely have concepts to say about this record. I just barely have something to say. So I've actually given myself a second listen. So you're cheating, Bon Iver. You don't get to do that, but I let you do that. So it starts off with him saying, like, "Are you recording, Trevor?" And it's funny because it makes it seem like it's going to be like kind of like a garagey, sort of out of nowhere album that he just puts together. But very quickly, it's clear that's not it. He's saying, "Are you recording?" because there's this insane sound in the background that is playing. It's this kind of like sound, almost of like a body or something being dragged across the floor. And that ends up being the basis of the next track. It's hard to even remember the names of any of the tracks on this album because so much of it is like this weird, I mean, like even the album being called I, it's like, what? The first track is called YI, and the second track is called I, capital M-I. It's very like, I can't tell if he has something to say and he's codifying it, or if he's almost like an artist who just like names things, untitled. And this is his version of just calling it Untitled, because he's sort of not so much making a statement about his life with his words, but more just like making symphonies, these mad symphonies, and the voices and the words are part of it. The first two real tracks, I, Me, and We, I initially wrote down, this is Bon Iver featuring Justin Vernon. So if you don't know, Justin Vernon, the guy behind Bon Iver, is like turned into this just weird hip-hop superstar. I believe Kanye was the first to use him on my Dark Twisted Fantasy, but he's appeared on a lot of rap albums. And it's really funny because he's this really vulnerable guy. But on these two tracks, it's like there's the really vulnerable part, but then there's almost this kind of like bluster, this kind of like hip-hop bravado, which influences his music. And I don't think that's, I think that's a logical outcome. If he spends a lot of his time working with hip-hop artists and being known for this other thing, like in the track I, Me, like he sings about forgiveness, but the line is, if forgiveness is a chore, what the hell are you waiting for? That kind of like beautiful mixture of vulnerability and aggression. This track is just the introduction. You just know this mad symphony is just insane. Crazy layering throughout this record. There's guitars, like single pit guitars, bottles clicking, women's voices, like a saxophone quartet comes out of nowhere and builds things up. Lots of amazing usage of horn. I think it's a saxophone quartet. I don't know, but lots of like, it almost feels like a trick where he knows that he can play with the dynamics of music to have it get quiet and then bring in four horns, and you're just going to be like, ah! But he uses it effectively, and it's quite excellent. And then goes into the track We, which has this great drum line that goes in with it too. It seems like he's having a really fun time in the studio. It doesn't feel like he's being tortured or in a tortured state, but it still comes through. It doesn't feel like he's having a good time, but he's definitely not goofing around. The track Holyfields, I think, is another good example of this mixture, this like influence of hip hop in this, because in general with him, I mean, good luck with the genre. Half the time when he sings, it sounds like soul. It sounds like R&B, with his falsetto, like Curtis Mayfield or something, But then it's like very clearly indie. And at times, I think it actually verges on jazz. And most of the time, I just call it kind of art music. So it kind of goes all over the place. But the song Holyfields, it feels like it could be about holy fields, like fields of holly or fields that are sacred, but then he makes reference to lightweight. So is he actually talking about like boxers, like Evander Holyfield? And it's this sort of mixture of Bon Iver featuring Justin Vernon. This is a great, I'm actually going to save that track. That's going to be my stamp. I'm going to sort of play you as an example of, no, screw it. I'm going to do it now. I'm going to play you as an example of what makes this, oh, I haven't even said if I like this record yet. I like it. I'm going to play this as an example. Like, listen to the way that he's using like static, like actual static, like rhythmically and well. And then he does these things, what I call this crescendo of a vocal stab, like, oh no. Okay. That probably scared my dogs. Oh no, right? So just listen to this a little bit, just how insane this is. It's cohesive, but it almost shouldn't be. Holyfields by Bon Iver.
Caught up with the featherweight. The dawn is rising. The land ain't rising. No. No, no. Flames.
So, the more I listen to it, the more I like it. I get the sense this album is going to grow on me insanely, just a lot. Because little things like that break, and then, you know, saying no, and then coming in with a, and the keyboard, it's really quite an excellent track. There's multiple times on this album where I just put goosebumps. It's really an uplifting record. I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on, but there's a lot of times where I felt emotionally moved, primarily through his usage of dynamism, like, you know, loud and quiet, but also the horns and instrumentation is just unexpected. It goes on to the track Hey Ma, which has kind of like a sort of, I think, a Kanye-inspired 808 heartbreak rhythm of just like, boop, boop. I'll just play that for a second so you can hear what I'm saying. Well, 1 second. Here we go. Boop. That's an interesting song. Like, I actually wrote in my notes, you know, this, sometimes people ask, do I have a script? You know, this is not really a script. It's just notes about the album. I just wrote bass work, just shut up. That's what I actually wrote while I was on the machine. Because the bass work on this track is insane. Listen to this track. I can't play it for you. You can't get the bass through your stupid computer or through my stupid computer or through this stupid microphone. But listen to the song Hey Ma and listen after the first chorus, the bass work that's going on here. It is actually very kind of Brian Wilson-y in the way that a lot of the songs feel modular, you know, like Good Vibrations or whatever. Like there's little chunks of songs that fit together, but the instrumentation is wildly different on one part to another. Just so layered. There's pitched voices in the back. This may actually be my favorite track on the album, but I don't think it can be conveyed through YouTube. So listen to that track. Just so much dynamism. Bass work. Shut up! You Man Like is the next album, next track, which it almost sounds like a song that you would sing in your elementary school. You know, like, this land is your land, this man is my land. Like, it has like this chorus of like women and maybe children singing. And that's the song with multiple harmonicas in it. It actually kind of has like a Bruce Hornsby sound to it, which I don't like Bruce Hornsby that much, but that's kind of interesting idea. The next track, Naeem, just goes over and over again. I can hear crying. And it does the best usage of this album of bringing the sound down and then bringing horns up. And really, that gave me goosebumps. And forget it. I'm going to jump ahead and talk about how this is the Zeitgeist album. I think along with the Chance the Rapper album, which I guess everybody in the world hates but me. It's still a good album, by the way. I've been listening to it. You're all wrong. It's okay. I think we're looking for hopefulness. I think that, like, this album is inspirational. It's hopeful. There's another track, a couple tracks later, called Faith. That's like the most traditional Bon Iver song, with, like, you know, the falsetto and distortion and all that. But it's talking about time to be brave. This album makes you feel good. And at the same time, it's completely genreless and mixes together all these instruments and makes you kind of feel like you're not really tethered to anything. And that's the same way that I think the Chance the Rapper album made me feel. It's the same way a lot of music makes me feel now. I think if we look back at this time historically, we'll see that most artists are scared and sad and unhappy, okay? I mean, we're very unhappy right now. I think the music is a reaction to that. And I think this album is reflecting that. The hope and joy that's in this album and that's in the Chance the Rapper album that you're wrong about. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there'll be some super depressing masterpiece that comes out and that's the zeitgeist. But I don't think so. I think that we're feeling so bummed out that we want this kind of genreless, like hip-hop, jazz, art, rock, indie madness. This madness. So there you go. That's what I say with Naeem. This is the zeitgeist. If we go back to my class, with me there, I'd say that maybe this is the zeitgeist. The track in between Naeem and Faith is a track called Gel More. Again, these weird titles that seem to mean nothing. Has like lots of bleeps and bloops and horns and everything seems random, but it's very cohesive. And it was at this point in the record where I realized that it managed to do what very rarely happens, where the tracks don't really sound alike, but the whole thing feels united. And I don't know how he does it. I feel like that would be like a good, polyphonic, 45-minute essay. Which, by the way, if you don't watch Polyphonic, you really should. He's probably the best YouTuber on music stuff. Really, really good stuff. Anyway, I would like to see, how does Bon Iver make an album? Because this feels so connected, yet everything is so dissolute. I don't know how he does it. Towards the end of the album, maybe it's not as strong as the beginning. Definitely the first 6, 7 tracks just feel like masterful. The end, maybe it's sort of like tailing off, which could be okay. The song called Marion, which is just a guitar and singing, feels kind of like a filler. A track called Salem is maybe the best edited track with all this mad symphony. Very moving song. There's like xylophone and strings and horns and drumming and singing, and he keeps on talking about reciprocity and what's cool about this is that this track ends with everybody playing the same note. And the whole album has this kind of or at least this track, going back to polyphony, a lot of polyphony going on, like different instruments playing different melodies. But then at the end, it's all da, 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 da. So it's like a play between synchrony and polyphony, and it's really sophisticated music. So give it. I would say if you have to listen to 2 tracks, I would say listen to Hey Ma and Salem as the best example of the most forwardness of this record. There's a song Shadia, more just double-tracked soul R&B falsetto. And then the last track, Rabbi, R-A-B-I, which maybe Randy Newman's on my mind because he was on the Chance the Rapper album, but Bon Iver sounds a lot like Randy Newman on this. And even the way that he sings in a way that feels like he's singing about his own emotional life, but with a sort of odd distance, which is, I think, what Randy Newman does quite well. So there you go. The zeitgeist of 2019? Maybe. A guy who is simultaneously vulnerable and aggressive. Bizarre and uplifting. In the Mad Symphony. Okay, that was good. I had to re-record this episode 3 or 4 times because my neighbors were mowing their lawn, blowing all the sweepings off the thing. They were making all this noise. I thought this is a really nice tableau right here. I got this pot behind me and the harp. It's nice. It's bizarre and uplifting. Okay, until next time, where I think we'll have a shorter episode, but this Bon Iver thing, it's a big deal. It's another one of those albums of the year albums. It's really good. Although I thought that about Chance the Rapper as well. So hey, maybe everyone hates this. What do you think? Do you like this record? Comment and like and subscribe. There's the camera.